My husband said we couldn't afford a crib for our unborn son. One social media post, however, showed me exactly where all our money was really going: his mother's Caribbean cruise. The smell of fresh paint still lingered in the air, a soft, hopeful scent of baby powder blue. I stood in the doorway of what was supposed to be our nursery, my hand resting on the swell of my belly, a familiar ache settling deep in my lower back. The room was mostly empty. We had a changing table, a hand-me-down from my cousin, and a large, flat-packed box leaning against the wall. That box was the source of every argument my husband, Mark, and I had had for the past month. It was the crib, the one I'd spent weeks researching, the one with top safety ratings that converted into a toddler bed. It was perfect. It was also, apparently, an unaffordable luxury. Mark came home from work an hour later, dropping his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door with a loud clatter. He kissed my cheek, his lips dry and chapped. "Smells good," he said, sniffing the air. "Did you make the lasagna?" "It's in the oven," I replied, trying to keep my voice light. "How was your day?" "The usual. Williamson is riding everyone hard about the quarterly reports." He loosened his tie and slumped onto the sofa, grabbing the remote. "Anything good on?" This was our nightly ritual. The small talk, the avoidance. We danced around the giant crib-shaped elephant in the room. We talked about his work, my latest doctor's appointment, what to watch on TV. We talked about everything except the one thing that was screaming in my mind. We were 7 months pregnant and had no money saved for our own child. I waited until he'd eaten, until he was relaxed and leaning back with a satisfied sigh. I brought him a glass of water and sat on the ottoman in front of him. "Mark," I started, my hands twisting in my lap, "we need to talk about the budget again." His eyes flickered from the TV screen to my face, his expression instantly guarded. "Sarah, not this again. We're fine." "No, we're not fine. The crib is still in the box because the final payment is due. The car seat I picked out is on sale, but the sale ends Friday. We don't have a stroller or diapers or anything. This baby is coming, Mark, and we are not prepared." My voice trembled on the last few words. The pregnancy hormones were making my emotions feel raw and exposed. He let out a long, weary sigh, the one he always used when he wanted me to feel guilty for bringing this up. "I told you, I'm handling it. Things are just a little tight this month." "This month?" I couldn't stop the incredulous laugh that bubbled up. "Mark, it's been a little tight for 3 years. It's been tight ever since we agreed you'd send your paychecks to your mother as a temporary measure." When we first got married, his mother, Brenda, had just lost her part-time job. Mark explained that she'd sacrificed everything for him, that she needed help to get back on her feet. I understood. I loved Mark and I wanted to support his family, so I agreed. He would send his check to her and we would live off my salary as a graphic designer. It was supposed to be for 6 months. A year, tops. It's been 3 years. Every time I brought it up, it was the same story. "She just needs a little more time, babe. She's had a hard life." "She's my mother, Sarah," he said, his voice low and defensive. "I have to take care of her." "And I am your wife." "And this," I said, gesturing to my stomach, "is your child. Who is taking care of us? I'm the only one putting money into our joint account. My entire salary goes to the mortgage, the bills, the groceries. There's nothing left over for a baby, Mark. How's that fair?" "Life isn't always fair," he mumbled, turning his attention back to the TV. The casual dismissal was like a slap in the face. My blood ran cold, then hot. "So what's your plan then? Are we just going to bring our son home from the hospital in a laundry basket? Are we going to wrap him in dish towels because we can't afford blankets?" He finally turned to look at me, his eyes full of a frustration that mirrored my own. But there was no empathy there, no sense of partnership. He looked at me like I was the problem, like my pregnancy, our baby, was an inconvenience he was being forced to deal with. He was quiet for a long moment, the manufactured drama from the TV filling the tense silence between us. Then he shrugged, a small, careless gesture that shattered what was left of my composure. "I don't know, Sarah," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "Things are tight. Why don't you just borrow from your dad for the baby?" The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Borrow from my dad. My dad, who was a retired mechanic living on a fixed pension. My dad, who had already given us the down payment for this house because Mark's savings had been mysteriously drained right after we got engaged. My husband, who earned a perfectly good salary, was telling me, his pregnant wife, to go beg my retired father for money to buy a crib for his own son because his entire paycheck was being mailed to his perfectly healthy 58-year-old mother. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, a wave of icy clarity washing over me. This wasn't a partnership. I wasn't his wife. I was just his roommate, the one who paid all the bills. He and his mother were the real family unit. I was just the incubator. I stood up without a word and walked out of the room. I didn't go to the nursery. I couldn't bear to look at the empty space. I went to our bedroom and shut the door, my body trembling with a rage so profound it felt like it might shake the baby loose. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my mind racing. What was she doing with all that money? His entire salary for 3 years. It was a substantial amount. Brenda lived in a small, paid-off condo. What could she possibly need all that money for? With shaking fingers, I picked up my phone. I don't know what I was looking for. A distraction, maybe. I opened up social media, my thumb scrolling numbly through pictures of happy families, engagement announcements, vacation photos, and then I saw it. A new post from my mother-in-law, Brenda. It had been posted just 2 hours ago. It was a picture of her, standing on the deck of a massive ship, a brilliant blue ocean sparkling behind her. She was wearing a new, brightly colored sundress, holding a champagne flute up to the camera, a wide, triumphant grin on her face. The caption read, "Living my best life in the Caribbean. So blessed to have a son who takes care of his mama. Cheers." My breath hitched in my chest. For a moment, the world narrowed to the glowing 4-inch screen in my hand, the cheerful colors of my mother-in-law's sundress, the impossible blue of the water, the condensation beating on her champagne flute. It all felt like a surreal, technicolor nightmare. I could hear the canned laughter from the sitcom Mark was watching in the living room, a jarring soundtrack to the complete implosion of my marriage. He wanted me to borrow money from my retired father so his mother could live her best life on a cruise ship. The rage from before was gone, replaced by something colder, sharper. It was the chilling calm that comes with absolute certainty. I took a screenshot, then another. I saved the image to my cloud drive, to my email drafts, anywhere he couldn't delete it. I stood up, my legs feeling strangely steady, and walked back into the living room. I didn't say a word. I just held the phone out in front of him, the screen illuminating his face in the dim light. He squinted, annoyed at the interruption. Then his eyes focused. I watched the color drain from his cheeks. He snatched the phone from my hand as if it were on fire, staring at the picture of his mother, his jaw working silently. "So?" he finally managed, his voice a low growl. He tossed the phone onto the cushion beside him. "My mother is on vacation. What are you, her stalker now?" "Her vacation?" I repeated, my voice devoid of any emotion. "The one you're paying for with the money we need for our son. The one she's on while telling me for 3 years that she's on the brink of financial ruin." "You don't know anything," he shot back, his eyes darting around the room, anywhere but at me. "Her church group paid for it. It was a raffle prize, a trip for seniors." I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "A raffle prize? Mark, read the caption. She's toasting you. So blessed to have a son who takes care of his mama. Does that sound like a church raffle to you? You're twisting things. You've always been jealous of my relationship with my mom," he yelled, finally getting to his feet. He started pacing, running his hands through his hair. This was his go-to defense. Turn me into the villain, the jealous, controlling wife. "Jealous?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Mark, I am 7 months pregnant with your child. Our crib is sitting in a box because we can't afford the final payment of $200. Our baby doesn't have a car seat to come home from the hospital in. I'm not jealous, I am terrified. And you have the nerve to stand there and lie to my face while your mother sips champagne in the Caribbean on our son's dime. It's my money. I earn it. I can do what I want with it. No, it's not your money, I screamed, the cold calm finally cracking. It's our money. We are a family, or at least I thought we were. But it's clear now that your family is just you and her. I'm just the woman who pays the mortgage and carries your heir. The cruelty in his eyes was something I had never seen before. It was reptilian. My mother was there for me my whole life. She deserves this. She earned it. What have you ever done for me besides get pregnant and complain about money? The air left my lungs in a silent whoosh, as if I'd been punched in the gut. That was it. That was the moment everything broke. The man I had loved, the man I had built a life with, was gone. In his place stood a stranger, a cruel, selfish boy devoted only to his mother. I turned without another word and walked to our home office, shutting the door behind me and locking it. I heard him pound on it once, twice, then a string of curses, followed by the slam of the front door and the squeal of his tires as he peeled out of the driveway. Good. Let him run back to his mommy. I sat down in the desk chair, the adrenaline making my hands tremble. The time for talking was over. The time for trusting him was over. I needed proof. I needed to know everything. I turned on our shared desktop computer. Mark was careless, arrogant. He used the same password for everything. The name of his childhood dog combined with his birth year. I typed it in. Access granted. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened his web browser. His personal email was already logged in. I took a deep breath and typed Brenda into the search bar. There were hundreds of emails, birthday wishes, links to funny videos, and e-transfers. Dozens and dozens of them, sent on the 1st and 15th of every month like clockwork. The amounts were staggering. It wasn't just his paycheck. He was sending her bonuses, cash back rewards from his credit cards, even the tax refund I thought we had used to fix the water heater last year. My stomach churned. I felt sick. This was so much worse than I had ever imagined. I kept digging, clicking on a folder bookmarked on his browser bar labeled Financials. It was password protected, but the browser had it saved. A single click and I was in. It was a cloud drive. There were subfolders for everything: car payments, tax documents, insurance, and one folder labeled simply The Project. My cursor hovered over it. My instinct screamed at me not to open it, to just walk away and call a lawyer. But I couldn't. I had to know. I clicked. It was full of PDF documents, bank statements from an account I'd never heard of, real estate listings, legal contracts. I opened the most recent file. It was a statement for a high-interest savings account in Mark's name. The balance made me dizzy. There was over $50,000 in it. Where had that come from? Then I saw the transaction history. For the past year, alongside the regular payments to Brenda, there was a second massive automatic payment coming out every month. $5,000. It wasn't going to Brenda's personal account. It was going to something called Paradise Holdings, Inc. The memo line on every single transfer was the same: Cocoa Reef Villa down payment. And attached at the bottom of the statement for his records was a copy of the preliminary title deed. The property was a 2-bedroom beachfront condo in Belize, and the sole owner listed on the deed was Brenda. Paradise Holdings, Inc., Cocoa Reef Villa, Belize. The words swam before my eyes, meaningless and yet devastatingly specific. A 2-bedroom beachfront condo. My husband, who told me we couldn't afford a $200 car seat, was buying his mother a beachfront retirement home in Central America. The $50,000 in that account wasn't savings. It was the down payment. The cruise wasn't a one-off vacation. It was a celebration, a victory lap. I felt a wave of nausea so profound I had to grip the edge of the desk. I wasn't just the bill payer. I was the financier of their entire secret life. My salary, the one I worked so hard for, the one that was supposed to be building a future for our son, had been nothing more than the seed money for their tropical escape plan. They had been bleeding me dry systematically for years. Every time I'd suggested a vacation, Mark would sigh and say we couldn't afford it. Every time I pointed out a new sofa we needed, he'd talk about saving for the baby. All lies. The whole thing was a long, elaborate con. I methodically downloaded every single document. The bank statements, the emails, the title deed, the correspondence with the Belizean real estate agent. I saved them to a new cloud account under a name he would never guess, and then wiped the computer's recent history clean. I was moving on pure, cold adrenaline. The weeping, hormonal, pregnant woman was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized, someone with ice in her veins. When Mark came back hours later, I was in bed, pretending to be asleep. He crept in, reeking of stale beer and his mother's cloying perfume. He thought I didn't know he always went to her house after our fights. He slid under the covers, his body tense. After a few minutes of stiff silence, he rolled over and put a hand on my stomach. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered into the darkness. "I was a jerk. You're right. We need to focus on the baby. I'll talk to my mom. I'll ask her to send some of the money back so we can get the crib set up." The lie was so bald-faced, so insulting, it took every ounce of my self-control not to laugh in his face. He felt me tense up and his hand tightened on my belly. "I love you," he said, his voice thick with fake sincerity. "You and our son are my whole world. We'll figure this out, I promise." I didn't answer. I just lay there rigid, counting my baby's kicks against his palm, a tiny life trapped in the middle of this catastrophic deception. He took my silence as acceptance, and soon his breathing evened out into a soft snore. I waited another hour, listening to the house settle, my mind a whirlwind of plans. Then I carefully slipped out of bed. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in acting. I was the perfect contrite wife. I apologized for overreacting. I told him the pregnancy hormones were making me crazy. He ate it up, relieved that he had dodged a bullet. He was smug, thinking he had me back under control. He even brought home $100 in cash, a pittance from the thousands he was embezzling from our family, and told me with a proud smile that his mom had sent it back to help with the baby. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I kissed him and thanked him, telling him what a good son he was. Behind his back, I was a whirlwind of activity. I contacted a divorce lawyer, one of those sharks you see on billboards, the kind who smile while they disembowel their opponents. I laid out the entire story, providing her with the mountain of evidence I had downloaded. She looked at the paperwork, then at me, her eyes gleaming. "Oh, honey," she said, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her face. "We are going to destroy him." The plan was simple and brutal. We waited. Mark had mentioned his mom was coming back from her cruise at the end of the month. He was planning a welcome home party for her. "Just a small family thing," he'd said casually. I knew what that meant. His aunts, his uncles, his cousins, the entire clan who worshipped the ground Brenda walked on and viewed me as a temporary inconvenience. It was perfect. The day of the party arrived. Our house filled with the cloying scent of Brenda's perfume and the sound of boisterous laughter. She was holding court in the living room, tan and radiant, showing off photos of her trip on her brand new tablet. "And this is the view from my balcony," she exclaimed, as a picture of a turquoise ocean appeared on the screen. "Mark is just the best son a mother could ever ask for. He spoils me rotten." Mark was beaming beside her, soaking in the praise. He caught my eye from across the room and gave me a little wink, a conspiratorial gesture that made my skin crawl. He thought we were on the same team. He had no idea what was coming. I waited until everyone had a plate of food, until Brenda was in the middle of a story about her all-inclusive cocktail package. I walked to the front of the room and turned down the music. Everyone quieted, looking at me expectantly. Mark smiled, probably thinking I was about to give a heartfelt speech about my wonderful mother-in-law. "I'm so glad everyone could come to celebrate Brenda's return," I began, my voice clear and steady. "It's so wonderful to see her looking so relaxed after her amazing trip. And speaking of amazing things, Mark and I have a little surprise announcement of our own." I paused, letting the anticipation build. I glanced at Mark, whose smile was now a bit strained. He had no idea what I was talking about. I pulled a small stack of papers from the pocket of my maternity dress. "Since Brenda is getting her dream retirement home in Belize, Mark and I have decided to finally get our own dream home, too." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. Brenda's smile froze on her face. Mark looked like he had been struck by lightning. I held up the first page. It was a blown-up copy of the title deed for the Cocoa Reef Villa, with Brenda's name circled in red marker. "I have to say, Brenda, the condo is beautiful. I especially love the infinity pool. But now that I'm divorcing Mark for fraud and liquidating all of your joint assets, I'm afraid you won't be able to make the final payment." I turned to my stunned, speechless husband, my voice dripping with false sympathy. "And honey, since the $50,000 down payment came from our marital funds, half of that is mine. My lawyer will be in touch." I then turned to the stunned crowd, holding up a new piece of paper. It was a sonogram picture. "Oh, and one more thing. It's a boy." The explosion I expected was delayed, replaced by a thick, suffocating silence. Brenda's face was a mask of chalky disbelief, the brand new tablet slipping from her fingers and clattering onto the floor. Mark's jaw was slack, his eyes wide with a dawning, animal terror. The relatives who seconds before had been laughing and eating my lasagna were frozen, forks halfway to their mouths, their gazes darting between me, the deed in my hand and Mark's unraveling composure. Then chaos erupted. It wasn't the shouting I had anticipated, but a flurry of frantic whispers, aunts murmuring to uncles, cousins pulling out their phones. It was the sound of a carefully constructed family myth being shattered in real time. Mark was the first to find his voice. "Sarah, what is this? What kind of sick joke are you playing?" he stammered, taking a step toward me. "It's not a joke, Mark," I said, my voice as cold and hard as a diamond. "I didn't raise it. I didn't need to. Every person in the room was hanging on my every word. It's called discovery. You should have used a better password," Brenda finally snapped. "She's lying!" she shrieked, her voice thin and shrill. "She's a vindictive, jealous liar. She's always hated me. She's trying to ruin our family." She pointed a trembling, manicured finger at my belly. "She's probably even lying about the baby being yours." That was a mistake, a profound tactical error. I saw a flicker of disgust in the eyes of Mark's Aunt Carol, a woman who had struggled with infertility for years. I saw his cousin Joe, who adored his own kids, physically recoil. Brenda had overplayed her hand, revealing the true venom beneath her sweet, martyred mother facade. I didn't even dignify her with a response. I just looked at Mark. "Tell them she's wrong, Mark. Tell your entire family that for the last 3 years, you haven't contributed a single dime to this household. Tell them how my salary paid for the roof over your head, the food you ate, the car you drive. Tell them how you asked me to borrow money from my retired father to buy a crib, while you were wiring thousands of our dollars to a shell corporation to buy your mother a retirement villa. Go on. Tell them the truth." He couldn't. He just stood there, opening and closing his mouth like a fish, his face crumbling. That was all the confirmation his family needed. The spell was broken. Brenda, seeing she had lost the room, grabbed her purse and fled, shoving past her own sister without a word. The rest of the family trickled out behind her, avoiding my gaze, unable to look at Mark. They left their plates on the tables, their drinks on the counters. Within 10 minutes, the house was empty except for me, Mark, and the ruins of our life. The legal battle was ugly but swift. My lawyer was, as promised, a shark. Armed with years of bank statements, emails, and the Belizean property agreement, she tore Mark's flimsy defense to shreds. His claim that the money was a loan to his mother fell apart under scrutiny. The judge was not amused. He called their scheme a deplorable and calculated act of spousal financial abuse. In the end, I got everything. I got the house since my father's gift and my salary had paid for all of it. The court ordered Mark's secret savings account frozen and awarded me 75% of the funds as punitive damages, more than covering my legal fees. The remaining 25% was placed in a trust for our son, accessible only by me until he turned 18. Mark was ordered to pay substantial child support, garnished directly from his wages. He tried to argue that he needed to support his mother, but the judge just laughed. Brenda lost her down payment on the villa and was forced to sell her condo to pay her own legal fees, eventually moving into a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. The day our son Leo was born, my dad was by my side. Mark wasn't there. I hadn't told him I was in labor. He found out a week later when he was served with the final custody papers. He has supervised visitation 2 hours every other Saturday at a sterile community center. He's always awkward, unsure how to hold his own son. Leo doesn't know him. To him, I am his whole world, and my dad is the fun grandpa who makes funny faces. It's been 2 years. The baby powder blue nursery is now a toddler's room, filled with toys and books and laughter. The infamous crib was the first thing I bought with the money from the settlement. It's a beautiful room, a happy room. Sometimes, late at night, when Leo is asleep and the house is quiet, I log into an old social media account. I look up Brenda's profile. There are no more cruise ships or champagne flutes. Her posts are mostly bitter, vague complaints about the injustice of the world, punctuated by blurry photos of her sad-looking apartment. Her last post was a week ago. It was a picture of a lottery ticket. The caption read, "You never know, a mama can dream." I look at the post, then I look around my beautiful, peaceful home, listen to the gentle sound of my son breathing on the baby monitor, and I smile. Some dreams die so that better ones can live. And my life, the one I built for myself and my son from the ashes of Mark's lies, is better than any dream I could have ever imagined.